Hello, welcome to the Story Studio podcast. This is kind of cool. This is we're just going to tell you a little bit about an upcoming series that we're going to have for you on the state of the industry, and really had a bunch of really smart thinkers. We basically shook the tree and said, who do we need? Who can tell us what's going on right now? Like not write, publish, repeat days, not a year ago, but what's going on right now. And so that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. But we have Niamh and Bonnie today, and on the blackout, Dave. He says he's having camera problems, but I secretly think that I think he's always going to have. It's like the ice cream machine at his local McDonald's. It's always broken.
It's so I can do the show without getting dressed. That's all.
I think Dave is naked and probably poking himself in some weird.
Okay, we went there.
This is such a great
back scratcher that is always just in frame.
Welcome to the show.
Well, yeah, state of the industry. Welcome, new people.
Well, I figure this is a new seasonal approach, and this is episode 1. So it's time to trim the tribe.
Yeah, let's alienate as many people as possible.
You came to learn about publishing. Imagine Dave naked with butter.
That's why I'm not on camera. I didn't want to scare away anybody watching on video.
See, it's funny that you went for butter. I was thinking chocolate. He seems more of a chocolate peanut butter guy. Like chocolate.
I was thinking more of a frying sort of aspect. I want to hear sizzling. Or a lot of slipping.
Rub butter on yourself and then go outside in the Florida sun just to smell yourself cooking.
You just hear snap, crackle, pop.
That's Sunday, not today.
All right.
Well, moving in then, as much as I hate to move away from Dave and his lubrication, let's move on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll jump in. So, state of the industry. This season, I'm really excited about this season, and just so we can orient the audience in space and time, we recorded all of the episodes that you're about to hear. We've already recorded. We held a bunch of interviews. We interviewed, I think we have 13 guests.
I think we have 13 guests, so a total of 15 episodes, like our wrap up and the one you're hearing now, and then 13 in between.
Yeah, and we went out and we tried to get, everyone that we could think of who has had some kind of a finger on the pulse of this industry. And by this industry, we mean self-publishing, but there's a couple of people who are sort of around in slightly different industries that we're going to talk to as well. But it's been really interesting. So what we wanted to do to start it off was to, before we, bring in all these wonderful guests, is to share what our view of the state of the industry is. I mean, because if we say it first, then we're going to sound smarter than...
Oh, let me rehash some stuff that is totally my idea.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because at this point, if you count Dave and I, when we were first like, okay, we're going to figure this out, we're going to do something, it's been 10 years now. We've been at self-publishing for 10 years. Now, most people actually don't know this. I don't think we've even really talked about this on the podcast very much. But even before Yesterday Is Gone, Dave and I were talking to a printer. This is pre-Kindle. We were talking to a printer to get...
This is WeBooks. I'm excited.
No, it's after WeBooks. It's after WeBooks, but before Kindle.
Where is it relative to Potty Training Power?
It's after Potty Training Power. And if you think that's a joke, it's not, listeners. It's not. So no, it's after Potty Training Power. But I don't remember exactly. It was 4 Seasons and Available Darkness, and Penny to a Million. Those were the 3 books that we had between us, and we were like, how much is it going to get to cost, get 1,000 copies of this in print? Where will we warehouse them? We were willing to go into the self-publishing space even before Kindle. Now, I'm really glad we didn't. I know I was a little too optimistic that we would have been able to sell those books ever. I'm really glad that we got stalled, mostly because the person we were working with at the time just kept throwing shit on us that kept us from shipping that. But Kindle was a really good time, and we were really prepared for that because we'd already had some conversations around it when Kindle popped up. So it wasn't just like a huge pivot. It was more like an evolution of what we were already talking about. And for you really, really old timers, you may remember Scott Sigler, who was someone that Dave and I had paid attention to in the very, very early days of self-publishing.
Is he not doing stuff anymore?
He's just not a name that you hear, but I read his book. as a podcast. Like, remember Podiocasts or Podiobook?
Yeah, he's still out there. He's still doing his thing.
So that was the first book that I read that was self-published that I was like, man, this reads like Michael Crichton. I mean, slightly trashier Michael Crichton, but Michael Crichton. Like, I really like this.
And he was the first one that was like kind of giving away his product for free in order to, get people to buy.
Yeah, so it was really something that Dave and I paid attention to, and he had a podcast talking about his method, and I listened to that. And so, Kindle was something we were really ready for. And the point is, that was a decade ago, which is a long time because I don't really think of it in those terms. And when we talk to our guests, not all of them, for the most part.
A decade's like one Florida year. Sorry, just had to interrupt.
For everyone we talked to, I think out of the 13, there's only a couple that we didn't have a pre-existing relationship with. They were just, one was someone whose work I'm really fascinated. Well, one? Becca Syme is one of our upcoming guests, and I'm just really fascinated with her work on, kind of like finding your strengths, who are you as a creative superpower, and how do you build something intelligent around that? And as, root collaborators as we all are, that's really important to understand our strengths and how we can, apply them to our collaborative relationships and the work we make. So that seemed really necessary. And, Niamh's had like a crush on K-Lytics forever. So
yeah, he was great.
Yeah, so that was a really, really great conversation. But except for a couple of exceptions, all of our guests we've known for a really long time. And it's really interesting to talk to people that we've known, if not for 10 years, for close. I've known Joanna for 10 years. Mark, we've known for...
Joanna Penn, Mark Dawson.
Both Marks. I actually met Mark Lefebvre. We've known longer than Mark Dawson. And Mark Dawson, we've known him, I think, since he kind of got started around here. So we had a lot of really great conversations that I think illuminated the way we're thinking, because we're in the middle of really revitalizing the studio. And we stepped back a little bit ago this summer and just reflected, how can we really take everything that we're doing to the next level? How can we take our learning to the next level? And how can we contribute again? How can we have conversations that are really exciting to us? Because if you go back into the early days of the podcast, almost 10 years ago now, it was so vibrant because we were always learning and we were experimenting, and that was really infectious. It was really fun to learn and to share. And so we thought, we've spent a lot of time learning in the last couple of years, and it's going to be really fun to kind of put some of our learning out there front and center with some of the other, industry vets who, have been doing this and sharing their knowledge for a long time. And I just really, really love the result. You guys are going to love all of these conversations. And it is fun to kind of do a precursor episode with us, with the Brain Trust, everyone here, me, Johnny, Niamh, Bonnie, and Dave. You've known me, Johnny, and Dave for maybe as long as 10 years now.
Sorry.
And, Bonnie and Niamh are extraordinary additions to this company. Together, the five of us make up the Brain Trust. So it used to be me, Johnny, and Dave kind of shooting from the hip. And now we take a much more strategic approach. We are learning faster than ever. We're applying faster than ever. And I think this new season 1 is a way for us to kind of synthesize a lot of what we learn and share it with you, both from our perspective and the perspectives of our 13 guests.
Yeah, I think to me, the best thing about this season was really that we were all like, hey, we really want to know, like, what's everyone else thinking and what is everyone else doing? And we're like, you know what? We can just make a bunch of podcasts for that. So we really wanted to, this is the show that we made for us. but I'm really excited about it. So, okay, yeah, I think that it would be good to gosh, I'm trying to think of where to go, because there is so much scope in terms of where things were, but I think there's a lot about where things were. So I think the audience is going to be more interested, more excited about where things are than where things were. So rather than kind of digging back over history, I'd love to know, like, what are the top couple of things that you guys feel have really been the biggest shifts or changes in the last, say, 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, I want to offer a little bit of framing on that, Niamh. I mean, assuming you guys agree with it. But I think that one of the things that we see a lot is continuing to beat the same nail with the same hammer despite the fact that we should have gone over here a long time ago. So at the end, you were saying about change, but I think it might make sense to touch a little bit on how things were, in the sense of, guess what? They aren't like that anymore. Right? Like, what are the things that people are still doing and still feel that is the right way to do it? And maybe that isn't as applicable. So I just wanted to offer that framing if you guys like that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, well, I also think that Niamh's actually a really interesting MC for this process, because she's been with us through all of the changes. And when she came, she's been with us for a couple of years now. And a couple of years ago, it was her background is marketing. So she's really, really good at selling shit. And kind of my favorite kind of marketer, in that she likes selling shit for the right reasons to the right people and based on the right psychological triggers. So in other words, she likes finding the people who really want something and making sure they get the thing they really want, and using that language to kind of bridge the gap. I love that. So one of the people we'll be talking to is Andre Chaperon, and he is a brilliant email marketer. In fact, he doesn't ever speak. It's kind of a rule. He doesn't do it. He doesn't travel. He doesn't speak. He does it very rarely.
You have to sign everything at him.
And
why don't you give him shit like you give me shit for not traveling?
Well,
or speaking.
He spoke. Well, that's my point. He spoke at our very first event ever, just out of affection for what we're doing and creating. And he's not part of the company like Dave, and he bitched about it less. So, point is, he's a brilliant email marketer. And his email marketing is all based on relationships. It's all the same stuff that Niamh is really great at, which is using the language of your market to build a relationship. But she didn't have any experience with books specifically. It was more of a desire. It was more like, I really want to understand how publishing works, and I want to rebuild the way books are sold. Like that was real passionate. And so she's not only come in as an observer to the way things were, so she could see all the broken ways that we were doing things. She also had the perspective to see what was broken and kind of work, all of us in harmony to fix them and build these new systems. So there's this voracious appetite to learn new things. And so these conversations with, all 13 people have been great for Niamh too, because she gets to ask questions and it's just been constant iteration. And I know we preached iteration all the way back, when we wrote a book about it 6 years ago, maybe. But the application in the last year, especially, has been pretty fast and pretty furious. And what Johnny has said is exactly right. The industry at large has been, beating the same nail with the same hammer for a while now. And
even that's not new. I mean, remember 3 years ago when things were totally different then than they are right now, and people were doing the exact same thing, beating the nail of 3 years prior. I mean, we are in a fast-moving industry that sort of has an indie aesthetic, meaning it's DIY, it's fast and loose, it's almost guerrilla in a lot of ways, and yet a lot of people behave like the same things are going to get the same results, and you see that in the the posts on K-boards or something, and not that I go to K-boards, but I hear about this where, the sky is falling sorts of things, that Amazon has changed something. Well, yeah, I mean, come on, get wily, come up with some other stuff. I mean, the first thing I'll swing at the lowest of the lowest hanging fruit is, I think, unfortunately, and this would kind of break my heart a little bit if I heard this on this show, so maybe we can couch it, but it is much, much, much harder to just publish something, even on repeat, even the right publish repeat methodology, and have it get any visibility or traction. We've definitely entered an era where it is a little pay to play, or a lot pay to play, and that you need to do some form of advertising to get any visibility. How true has that been in your experience?
Well, that's actually the perfect starting point. That's what I was going to say, is the biggest change in the last few years is exactly that. The fact that the landscape has changed to pay to play. It's not really, you could write the best book in the world and, have a really supremely optimized funnel. And if
the best series of books in the world with great cliffhangers and great covers and all that stuff we talked about in the past.
Yes. they could be bestsellers. All you need is the traffic. But if you can't get the traffic there, you're not going to get it organically like you could once upon a time. When we first started publishing, we were able to drop things, turn them free, turn them back to paid, and get a bunch of free traffic that just like, oh, well, people bought the books. It was a magical time. That time is never going to come again. But what you see as the market matures, and I think that's the point about, you know, being here for 10 years and talking to a lot of people who have been there almost as long, we really are seeing a maturation of the market. And so the behavior changes on the reader side, but it also changes on the creator side. And, you know, we have to get better. And, you know, it's not that just because you can't, you know, turn that free to paid switch anymore and get that free traffic, doesn't mean all the opportunity is gone. I mean,
yeah, it's not just a maturation, it's a rationalization. I know I used to talk about this before I was even into publishing. When I was doing some other stuff online, was people act like once something's on the internet, it's magic. There's magic fairy dust. And well, if you have a business, so what's your business plan? What's your, you know,
my
methodology?
business plan is to sell it for $97. Like there was a whole few years where that was
right.
People's business.
Irrelevant. It's on the internet. You know, what are you worried about? Customer satisfaction, customer service? What do you think? It's on the internet. It doesn't matter. And I think that when we talk about the market maturing, it's not the sky is falling. It's not that things aren't working. It's that, guess what? This is how things are sold. And this is the way that, like, this isn't the odd times. The old times were the odd times. Like, that didn't make any sense that you could just publish something and build it and they come.
It's not a market, maturation. Well, it is a market maturation, but it's also a market correction. And we're still in the middle of that market correction. And, you know, at first there was this lamenting, like, man, we used to be able to just use lists and, you know, write good books. We used to be able to sell them. And now we literally have to have ads for everything. Well, that's especially hard for us because, you know, we have a lot of content. We have a lot of funnels. We have a lot of series, some of them not even finished. So there's a lot of
but wait, Sean, isn't that a good thing?
It's a lot of there's a lot of broken pieces of the road. And so we've spent a lot of the last couple of years finishing things out, finishing funnels, recompiling, just making sure that mistakes of the past, of which there were many mistakes in the past, not just like strategic mistakes, but actual like production mistakes, like people we had in charge just kind of doing a terrible job getting things to the end. And so when we went back and, you know, we're looking at back matter and things like that, and things don't add up, there's missing CTAs, like that's a problem. So we had to really strategically look at everything. But having to do that, having to gut everything and start over and think of in terms of everything, looking at it through the prism of, this will need an ad, this will need a campaign, this will need to feed into the rest of what we're doing, and how do we make that happen? There is a steep learning curve there, and especially when you have the breadth of catalog that we do. You know, Johnny and I went for, you know, several years where we're like, man, like the market's changing, and when we were talking about that, but not really attacking the problem. And so this year we really started attacking the problem. And one of the things that we did was listen to podcasts. And, you know, we kind of divided among the marketing team. You listen to this and I'll listen to this and we'll compare notes. And, you know, Niamh and I kept coming back with the same thing Johnny and I kept coming back with before, which is like, oh man, why are these people making all this money with these series? And, you know, our stuff's not taking off. And, you know, but the difference this time was that it was actually validating, because what we saw is that the people who were really crushing it, they had their funnel, and they could just focus on that funnel and just optimize it. We had an entire studio worth of content to flesh out, bring together, and build. So, you know, instead of just this skyscraper that went straight up into the sky, you know, we had a whole city block that we're slowly building up. And so,
oh my God, I just think I was going to say city block, literally. So I don't know whether we've tossed that metaphor around or not. I was looking for an appropriate metaphor, and I was like, we're trying to build a whole city block. I just totally interrupted you to say that. So good.
No, it is. It is the whole city block. So there's a lot more attention there, but it's really exciting because we have many different kinds of funnels. They work in different ways, but they all make sense for the author behind them and for the larger picture. And yeah, Niamh, it looks like you want to say something.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, you know, all of this stuff, and I've been marketing roughly since 2006, And I've seen a lot of times where like a new sort of market opens, everyone rushes into it. A lot of people get rich really quickly, and then a lot of people start to say none of this stuff works anymore, and so you see the pattern over and over and over. But what I've discovered time and time again is that it's always a good thing. It's always a good thing when the market course corrects, because what we're seeing now is that there's a lot of competition. Like more people are putting books out. And in fact, I think Alex Newton says later on in this series says something about how there is an increasing supply compared to the demand. But the reason why that's good is because when you have competition, then it means that you have to create higher quality products. So when our things weren't doing as well as they used to do, we had to look at them and we were like, hey, look, we're missing CTAs. We're not telling people to, how to go get the next book. We're missing out some of those pieces. And so then that made us create better quality products. And now we bake in quality from the start. That's why Bonnie is like so integral to everything that we do, because she goes through and makes sure that every story works as a story and works on an emotional level. So I think that it's one of those things where it's like, it's disappointing sometimes to go, okay, I have to push myself further and make a higher quality product, but it's actually a better environment to be in, because, like readers 10 years ago were like, ugh, self-published, like, isn't that all crap? And now we're seeing a lot of readers who either don't know the difference or know that, they can get high quality stuff from a self-published author. So we'll see that the readers have more trust in the market, which means that more readers can come in. And that means that we all have more people to share our books with than we had at the start. So we might not be making as much money as easily and as quickly, but what we're finding is that as long as you keep writing good books, and as long as you pay attention to the market and you make sure that you are staying high quality, then there's no reason why your books can't do really, really well. I mean, I just think about like Amazon. Amazon is a monopoly. What happens when you have a monopoly? They don't have to compete. So they have shitty work environments. And, we all put up with like, okay, I know you guys, Amazon over there is great, but Amazon over here is not so great. And you just put up with whatever.
In Ireland. I don't think you clarified
Ireland.
that when you're saying over there. Yeah.
Right. So in Ireland, it isn't as great. We have just a different situation, but Amazon can get away with doing whatever they want because they have a stranglehold on the market. So none of us want that situation. We want to be in an environment where there's a lot of competition, where it's thriving and where we're pushed to do better. So I think it's a good thing, but I do understand that it's hard to stomach when life was super easy and lots of money is just pouring in.
Yeah, it's good and it's bad. But I mean, for a while there, it was like we would have people at our conferences, not a lot, but every once in a while it would happen. And they would basically be saying some version of this. They wouldn't use these words, but this is basically it. Man, I just shit out a story and I put it up and I made $1 bazillion, like they would just, and they'd tell us about all the ridiculous things and how easy it was. And I mean, that is nice to be able to make a bunch of money or do whatever, but I don't want crap to be no, I want to actually make good books. And I think that if you do want to make good books, it's frustrating. You have to work harder and you have to understand more and all that. But then it means that maybe good books actually get rewarded for a change, and that's good for you.
Well, what I love about this model is that, you can throw a lot of money onto a book one and, get people to read book one and be upside down a little bit there. But if you don't have good stories, then your funnel is fundamentally broken, because you can even get people to download a free book pretty easily. It's not that hard. And maybe if they're bored enough, they'll read it. But they may not finish it, and they're certainly not going to go to the very next book. And so, our focus on quality, it has always been there. And now our focus on marketing and ads. Now, ads frustrated me in our prior regime because they weren't really doing anything, and we didn't have the infrastructure internally to pull it off. Johnny likes the idea of ads, but not running the dashboards, and we didn't have anybody who was passionate about it. Now we have an entire marketing department who like we're excited when we meet every week. We are excited to sell books. And so it's gone from well, man, these ads are something that we have to do, to something I'm really excited about. Because not only are we finding ways to make every line profitable, at least sell and moderate, and over time, we see something that can infinitely scale. But by paying attention to the market, by paying attention to what ads work, by paying attention to what readers like and don't like, we become better storytellers. We become more commercial, more pleasing storytellers for our audience. And that's amazing, because there's this thing called earned attention. And I think that you can use ads to get people on your lists, and then you can use your lists to build relationships, and then you can use those relationships to leverage your art and create different things that may not be as algorithmically rewarding. And I've really, really enjoyed figuring all of that out. And what I see in the marketplace is the same thing I kind of see in life. I think you have people who either see everything as the sky is falling, or you see everything as, wow, there's opportunity there. And, I'm probably to the side that's a little bit broken on there's opportunity there. Not that I'm always like looking to get rich, like that's so not the kind of opportunity I mean, but I do tend to frame things as, oh, that's a good thing, no matter whether
You're
it is
always
or
optimistic
not.
about
Yeah.
the outlook.
Do you know
one thing I want to throw in, Sean, just because I know that there's going to be listeners out there who are like, I don't have a marketing department, I don't have a whole team, like, so this is why they're successful.
Okay, but you might be in an advantage. That's exactly
right. That's exactly it. So because we're doing the city block instead of the skyscraper, and we've said this time and time again. So earlier Sean was saying we listen to all these podcasts and we go, oh my God, those people are doing so well. So some people have one series that's making more than like a dozen of our series is put together. And we go, oh, how are they doing it? And you know what it is? It's that like one person is paying attention to one thing, and they're putting all of their focus and energy and attention and resources into making this one thing work. So actually we're at a disadvantage by having such a wide and broad catalog. It's been fun figuring it out, but if we have 3 or 4 people on a marketing team, we still have less than one person on every series. So we're
right.
still,
And it's also, there's that trickle effect. So if we make a change, well, that change it probably has 14 other places on the spreadsheet where there's another change that has to be made. So things are,
we move slow.
we move very slow, but we're moving at the proper speed. Even though it feels slow, it's actually considering the kind of the monumental undertaking that we have, not only in reconditioning a few hundred books for evergreen sales, and building all that connective tissue together, but also building the systems that will get us through the next year and then the next 5 years after that, because we're kind of in 2 phases right now. We are really focused on the next year very specifically, and then we have a really robust 2 to 5 year plan to follow that. So really paying attention to where the market is, where it's going is just so important to the beating heart of our business right now. But I do think you're absolutely right, Niamh. If you're listening to this and you're like, but I'm just one person, I swear to you, you are at an advantage. It is the difference between, when I first moved to, not this house, but the apartment I lived in before this, I used to go on a walk every single day around my entire like big block that the apartment complex was in. And there was this giant office building being built. And I used to love it because it was this, I got to see it over the course of a year being built one day at a time. Like day to day, you could never see, well, that wasn't there yesterday. Every day it looked identical to the day before, kind of. But over a year, you saw this thing go up. Well, also on that walk, there was a little neighborhood that was brand new that they were putting houses up. And you'd see houses go up like another house, another house, another house. Like, damn, those are some nice looking houses that are just getting farted out, But it's the difference between this big, beautiful office park that is holding, 40 other businesses, and these individual homes. So I think it's easy to build an individual home, and this company was very successful when it was just me and Dave putting out our books, and then me and Johnny just putting out our books. Now we're training authors, and we're building something that is rather remarkable and hopefully future-proof, but it's slow to do it right, but it's also wrong to not do it right.
We're moving faster than trad publishers and slower than your average indie. So okay, so that actually kind of begs the question, and this is a question that we asked a lot of our guests, and I think it's one that I'm curious what you guys are going to say. In any case, if there's like one piece of advice that you give someone just starting out, what would it be? And I imagine it'll be different for different people on this call. I'm gonna say, how about we start with Bonnie?
I think the one piece of advice would be, it's really easy to get overwhelmed when you're building a business and you're also trying to improve your storytelling. And it's really easy to leave the storytelling behind and say, I'll just get better by writing more words, which you will. You will get better if you keep writing more words, and you'll get even better faster if you have an editor giving you good feedback. But if you just pick one really small thing with every new book you're going to write and set yourself the challenge of, I'm going to do just a little bit better with this very small aspect of craft, like better dialogue, better descriptions, better character entrances, right? And just pick that one thing and work on it in that novel, you're going to see an exponential increase in your abilities by like practicing those small improvements in each draft. And it's not going to take that much more time away from all the things you have to do on the marketing side. It might be a few extra hours, but it's not something that's going to kill your productivity. So that would be mine.
I would say if you're lucky enough to find a readership early, writing a specific kind of thing, write more of that thing. Don't go out and do 50 different things like we've done. It's sort of, I would liken it to, the Hollywood actor that does, successful films and then does a few for him or her. I kind of do it like that. You deliver what they want, and then, one every 4 books or something, you do something for you that maybe they'll like, and just keep your audience that is expecting one specific thing and maybe this is more for genre fiction than another, I don't know, but that's what I would do if I was starting over now.
Johnny?
Well, I paused because I think somebody's going to walk up to my door, at which point it's going to get very loud. So why don't you do yours?
All right.
Open up!
I would give 2. The first is, I think it's
you're bucking the rules.
well, I know, but 1 is just repeating. I really think
it's actually 1 with 2 sub mentions.
That's true. I think 1 is a life framing thing, but I do think it's important. I think being able to see the positive in anything, especially when you're starting out, is really important. It's so easy to see the negatives. That person is doing more than me, and that leads to comparisonitis. Or I'm never going to be as good as that person, or they are changing the algorithms, or I can't price my book at 99 cents and make 70%. Like whatever it is that is your reason for being held back, I am sure you can reframe that into opportunity. And I think that successful people know how to reframe, their reality into something that resembles opportunity. And so I think that approaching the industry in that way will make you a more successful storyteller. And I don't mean writing more successful stories. I mean more successful in selling those stories, which is, I think, what we're talking about here, is getting that momentum. But other than that, I think it's really important to focus on just-in-time learning, because there's so much to understand about this industry and to figure out. And there's so many people saying this is the right way to do it, and this is what you should do and why. And it's very overwhelming. And if you're out there on your own, then just focus on your immediate needs and learn the things that you need to learn to get to the next step. So like what Bonnie just said, I'm just going to focus on entrances this time. That's a great way to learn better storytelling, is to focus on one thing at a time, but it's the best way to build a business too. Don't try to do 84 things. Do one thing and then accomplish that, and then do the next thing, and you'll get further faster.
Mine's a little sideways of what you guys said. So mine would be, get into this because you love telling stories and you love writing. don't get into it because it's a business. Now, you can do both, just do them in order. So if you love to write, you love to tell stories, and you're like, what if I made a business of that? Or wouldn't it be great if I could do it full time so I didn't do anything else? Then kudos, awesome. But I think what serves nobody, none of the working authors and none of the people who are trying to come in doing this, is to start with it as a business first. Boy, there's a lot of money to be made in publishing. Not really that into writing, but I can make it work and I can do that. That mercenary approach is just kind of shits on everybody, including you, because it is not easy. There are easier ways. If you just want to make money, there are 1,000 ways that are easier to do. Opening a restaurant is probably easier than this if you purely want to make money, even though restaurants are fantastically hard to make money at, right? So I would say as much as it's possible, come into this with a love of storytelling and then try to think of, boy, if I could make money at this too, that would be a bonus. Now, obviously, if your goal is to be self-sustaining, then you can't stay that way for long. But I think if you try to enter with as much of that mentality as possible, you're going to be happier. I would just say that.
Well, I think that for me, I was actually just thinking about this as I was listening. I was like, I have no idea what my answer is, but actually, there is something that I think is just a really sound marketing principle for everyone to have right from the start, which is just having the attitude of experimentation. And I'm a type A person. I was like always gonna get an A in class, and I was super competitive and all of that stuff. So I was really trained into there's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things. And then when you come into the world of marketing, there isn't a right and wrong. There isn't like, this is the way that works. And so we ask people for their blueprints and their step-by-step and all that stuff. And even if someone gives you their step-by-step, they can't possibly, hand to you the exact same situation that they were in. And every single person that I've seen who's ever been successful at any kind of marketing is just messing around. You hear what someone else is doing, you think about maybe why they're doing that, and then you play around with it, try some things out, see what works and see what doesn't. Keep what works and throw out what doesn't for you. And I think that whenever you have that attitude, you're going to just do more. You're going to try a few more things. And you're going to not kind of get stuck waiting to see, well, like, oh, I'd be successful, but it's pay to play and I haven't got the money for, this course. And what am I going to do? Well, just try out some ads then, listen to a few podcasts, try something out.
Seriously, pay to play could be $5 a day. Like it doesn't have to be a ton, because that $5 a day, again, you have one product, not our 300.
Before I say this, maybe I should put this as a question, because I was going to say, well, it could be $1 a day, but could it? Like, can you go that low if you want to experiment? You got to start with 5. Okay,
it's reasonable. But here's the thing: like, even if you're like, well, $5 a day, that's still $150 a month, right? That is a lot. But I mean, tell me one business that you can build without spending $150 a month. Like those businesses don't exist.
Yeah. What store ever opened up and didn't put up signage and didn't run newspaper ads and didn't, hire people to talk about it or whatever? Like, what business does that?
And then
well,
quickly
that's so
close.
true. Like back in the day, if you were an entrepreneur, you knew that you were going to spend 2 to 5 years not eating. Like, your business was not going to be profitable for a certain number of years. And in that time, you're probably going to be spending money on it. And that's the myth of, online marketing. And it was absolutely prevalent in book marketing, because people were like, hey, we're making money and we're not spending any. And that's great, but that's not actually, that's not really a sound way to approach a business. That doesn't mean you have to go into massive amounts of debt. And we're still in a way better situation than people who are building brick and mortar businesses offline. But, all that being said, it does make sense to come into it expecting it's going to take me some time until my books are paying me. And, I think resetting your expectation also helps with, feeling okay as you keep going. It can be really demoralizing to continue on when you're like,
yeah, it's like,
make money now.
Well, Jen, who is in charge of our promotions, and she's so good at it. And one of the reasons that she's so good at it is because she cares. and she's really looking for the wins. Like she takes the wins personally. Like if the company,
I get notices all the time of like, hey, look what your book is doing. It's stuff that I wasn't watching, but she is.
right. And that's just kind of like, I mean, it's wonderful to see, but oh fuck, I forgot my point.
Well, I have an additional one that is partially a restatement of what Niamh said, but I think it's worth really underlining is don't be dogmatic. And you sort of said this, Niamh, a little bit with there isn't like one right way, but just more globally, like the number of times, I mean, this is a tired example, but the number of times that people would say, well, how many words should be in my cereal? Okay, well, that's dogmatic thinking. That's feeling that, okay, there's this rule book and you got to play by it. I think it's worth just understanding that you are an entrepreneur and entrepreneurs don't have playbooks. And now I'm really just restating what Niamh said, but
Well,
that's the truth.
yeah. So the reason I brought Jen up is because she's, she has a credit card, and we gave her a budget, and place
She
it at.
has one of our credit cards. It's not particularly noteworthy that she owns one
She has a Sterling and Stone company card
for making purchases on our behalf.
right. So she could place, she could buy the ads. And she's just very conscientious about, okay, well, I've reached my max, I've reached my budget, is that okay? And this is how I allocated it. And we keep trying to encourage her, like, it's okay. And go over the budget if you need to, and don't attach what you're spending to what it's making. That's a different department. We'll optimize over time, and we have to be comfortable losing money on our ads before they make money, because that's how optimization works. And again, going back to the point of why this is more difficult for us. Our tanker is bigger. It takes us longer to move away from the iceberg. If you're just got that, $5 a day, $150 a month, like run that ad, optimize it, figure that out. For us, we're having to figure out ads, across the board. So that becomes much more time consuming and much more expensive. But if you can lose money to learn how to make money, it makes sense. But you can't forget that second part of the equation. And I've seen that a lot in this industry, is people just thinking that ads are a magic bullet, and that if they could just get eyeballs, their problems will be solved. But that's not how ads work either. Your funnels have to be in place. Your back matter has to be in place. You have to be able to spend money getting a reader to get your first book, because you're confident that they're going to not only get your second and your third, but hopefully move on to your next series or whatever. And that does take more intelligent, sophisticated linking and, just making sure that your funnels are in place. But you can do that. And again, if you just have the one funnel, it's easy, because you can see what works and then test something else. And does it work better? Awesome. Do it that way. If it doesn't, go back to the other way.
Awesome. Well, okay. I mean, I think we could probably do like another hour on this whole topic, but I think it would make sense if we sort of wrap things up, because as well, like you're going to have 13 amazing guest episodes coming, and then we'll come back on at the end and kind of discuss the patterns that we've seen, because there have been a lot of patterns coming up, and what clearly is sort of in the future, because we did ask everyone as well, what do you think the future is? So, but what I'd love to do would just be to finish with, Sean, I think probably it's for you, because you are our leader.
I just feel like I talk too much.
No, I know.
If aliens said, take us to your leader, I think we know where we go.
we would say, go over there. It's Sean. So Sean, what do you see in the next 5 years? Like, what would you like to see happen in the next 5 years in the industry, or for Sterling and Stone, whichever way you want to take it?
Flying cars.
Well, interestingly, jetpacks for sure. Global calamity almost for sure.
Like we don't have enough of that.
I do think that I like this question, because I think the industry
2020 part 2.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Electric Boogaloo.
I do think that the industry, as it changes, it really harmonizes with the way that we're growing anyway. So I think that answering the question is straightforward, because I think that we're maturing along with the industry. So I think there's going to be a lot more relationships. I think that relationships with creators are going to be important. I think there's always going to be the algorithmic set that just does well that way. But I think that the true superstars are not going to survive algorithmically. The true superstars who get their content, in other mediums, which we're very interested in, they're going to be doing it because readers can't stop talking about them. That they're getting those recommendations from forums and not from also bots. So I do think that there is a place for also bots and always will be. There is a place for machine learning recommendations, always will be. But I think human curation is going to get more important. I think the trend of collaboration will only grow more and more and more. It just makes sense as indies have to do more and more and more. They're getting further away from the storytelling, and there's a lot of bristling against that naturally. It's what we've done in the house that we have created is we want people who can just really want to tell stories, and we can do some of the other stuff. I think that move to different mediums for sure. Obviously, you'll hear it pretty much as an echo. Everybody who comes up, we talk about audio a lot. Audio is exploding, but I think just different kinds of medium. Audio becoming audio dramas, becoming television. I know Dave saw the first episode of Homecoming on Prime, or the first season. Has anybody else watched Homecoming on Prime? Okay, so it's executive produced by Sam Esmail, who does Mr. Robot and is doing the new Battlestar Galactica reboot.
He is God.
It is so good, you guys. And season 2 has made me really appreciate season 1.
Season 2 is good?
It's great.
Is it like completely different characters?
Yes. I want to talk to you about it off air. I love it. Okay. And I think it feels very CI in some ways. And I think you'll really dig what's done. But what's interesting about it, the reason it's relevant to this conversation, is it was originally a podcast on Gimlet Media, which I didn't know until I started watching season 2. And that's exactly the kind of content that I could really see us creating. Dave and I do this little 7-episode thing that feels like, it could be made into television, and then we adapt it for an audio drama, and then it gets picked up as an audio drama into Amazon Prime or whatever. There's a lot of options there. The point is, I think that that you're going to see a lot more vertical and horizontal expansion in the industry, and a lot more collaborative relationships, and just different kinds of platforms too. I think there's going to be a evolution on platform, because what KDP Select is doing is great. They created something for all of us, and that's awesome. But I know the market is not completely satisfied by that. Authors are not completely satisfied with discoverability, and readers are getting, I think, pretty irritated by some of the way it's broken. Like if you've heard Johnny talk about trying to buy a book on Amazon, he just won't do it anymore. He needs a personal recommendation. So I think that there is a growing number of readers who are tired of the machine learning recommendations or the sponsored ads. So those are the basic ways I think that we'll see evolution, heavy evolution.
All right. Well, it sounds like that is our wrap up, and like Niamh said, we'll circle back at in the end after we've played those 13 interviews for you. I love that it's 13. It feels very, very appropriate. And that's about it. So stay tuned for the next one. Do we know what the first one is, or is that a surprise?
We know.
But we don't want to say.
I think we should say that the first one is Joanna Penn. And the reason why we put her first is because she has such a really interesting sort of broad view. She's been around, obviously, the industry for a really long time. So she could really speak to a lot of the changes that have happened, but also she has a really fascinating look at the future, at what's coming. And I really enjoyed that when we had her on. So I'm looking forward to that one. So that's going to be what is going to drop next week.
Excellent. And I should watch that too, because that's the one I'm not on. So thanks everybody for listening. There you go. So thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you on the next one. Although apparently I won't, because I'm not on the Joanna one, but yeah. So thanks everybody.